buy the movie out. And with that note, Stallone getting blackmailed for a film that we're not going to talk about today. Oh
Thank
We're not
man,
goodness.
live, are we?
we're live now.
We're live now. Okay.
Yeah, we're
All
live
right.
now. But you know what though? Stallone being in a porn movie is reminiscent to Scream. Lord knows he had a lot
Uh,
of love in his
I
red
get
right
it.
hand. And with that pre-talk, I am Pumpkin Jack, and today we're coming out of the Ghastly Hallows.
And this is Red.
And Bolt, how are you guys doing this morning,
We're here.
evening, afternoon? But
We are here
We're here.
today
We're
discussing Scream.
ready to scream our heads off.
And you know it.
uh,
Especially when we clarify the context that Sly Stallone was in a porno movie at some point in time in his life, and it was funny. And it was released to blackmail him because he wouldn't pay them about $100,000 or something to not have the film released, which is more or less in line with the overall theme of the films we're talking about today. Today we're talking about scary Oh wait, no, that wasn't the name, right? That was only the working title. We're talking
That
about
was the worst.
Scream.
Now, the people that made what is today known as Scary Movie, did they get that from the original title of Scream?
Yeah, they did.
Or is that a coincidence?
No, they did. They
Okay.
got it. Yeah, the Wayans brothers were made aware that the movie was being there was a horror movie being filmed on the lot of Miramax or Dimension or something like that, and they're like, "Oh, what are you guys filming over there?" It's called Scary Movie, and I think they were friends. They were friends with one of the guys who would go on to be in one of the sequels because he was in Don't Be a Menace with them, Omar Epps. So Omar Epps was kind of hovering around the set of that film, as I think he was originally at some point tapped to be, again, parody nature, right? In the 90s, you had all these movies because there's one guy that wrote everything in the 90s. In the 80s, you have John Hughes. In the 90s, you have Kevin Williamson. Fuck him. But you have Kevin Williamson writing all these fucking movies. And he always had these people that they would make fun of in an on movie. The jock, the nerd, the quirky weird guy, the hot girl, the secretly hot artistic girl with glasses. That was Nev Campbell in this movie. And then lastly, the token black guy whose job it is to walk around saying, damn, shit, and that is whack. That's it. That's his whole personality in the whole fucking movie. So I think Omar Epps was supposed to be that guy, and then they just didn't. He's like, oh yeah, no, your character got written out. Something like that I've heard. I'm not sure if it's true. I doubt it's true. But he knew it, and then they were getting high with the Wayans brothers watching a movie one day, and he's like, yeah, y'all know they're filming a movie on there? Like, oh, what's the name? Scary Movie. But what's the name? That's the name. What? For the movie. What? Scary Movie. Really? Yeah. So the movie's called Scary Movie? Yeah. And then they started binge watching a shitload of horror movies later on, and then that became Scary Movie. They just made fun of all of these movies, and they poked a lot of fun at it and just said, what if this, what if that, and that's how you got that. And so that we guys are fully aware, we get back to subject here, because that movie in its own deserves its own video. I love that movie.
I love that movie too. Yeah.
It's like my favorite parody movie of all time.
One sign pointing one way says safety, the other sign pointing the other way says fear. I like
When he stabs her, he pulls the silicone boob out. He's like, ugh.
oh my!
Yeah.
And the guy who does the voice of the killer is Beetlejuice from the cartoons.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's the same guy.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to it. Back to Scream. Scream. Who wants to bring us into Scream, or should I do it? Because it seems like I'm the one who knows a little bit creepy-ish about this one. Is anybody excited for this one?
You're the resident Scream scholar.
God damn it. You know what the irony is? I hated these movies growing up. So let's get into it.
That's why you're talking about it.
I am this brother of two Gen Xers. So this was their movie. This is not ours. It's like if any millennial comes out and goes, that was that movie. Fuck you. That's not your movie. That's not our movie.
I was
take
6
us.
years old when this movie came out.
Yeah, so
It's,
was I.
it's a-
This isn't ours. This was
yeah.
the Gen Xers. It's like X-Men 97. Millennials were trying to claim that. That's not ours. Fuck you. You didn't know about that. It's you millennials' fault that we have fucking Wolverine. There's the same guy for like the past 20 years. He's going to die in another 30 years playing Wolverine because you guys just won't let him go. Y'all up in your ass about nostalgia. It's your fault. That was not yours. Gen Xers were the ones who owned X-Men 97, just like Gen Xers are the ones who own the Scream movies, because it was made for them, with TV shows, writers, for them, by them, like FUBU. I'm pretty sure you millennials didn't even know what the hell that is, right? FUBU? Bastards. Anyways, back to the point, after growing up with them, I remember when MTV still had music videos. That's what this crowd was for. This movie was for. Scream. It comes out in 1996, and it is a powerhouse. I saw people tell me that this was the scariest movie they had ever seen. I shit you not.
Were they paid actors? 'Cause
No,
that
like in the
sounds
classroom,
right.
in the classroom, there were kids that told me when we were teenagers, this was the scariest movie of all time.
Well, I mean, that one of the things I do find impressive about it is that it is at once sort of a parody of scary movies, but it does hold up in its own right as a scary movie.
It does. So we'll go into that because I actually do want to touch that. We'll just like hit the history with this one, and we're gonna go from there. This one is responsible for what would become the genre for the rest of the decade. And I think a lot of people mistake that with its quality. Oh, that was such a great film that inspired. No, that's not what that did. What that means is that it was such a proven formula that this guy cracked that they just kept on doing it again and again and again and again until Carlos started spitting on horror movie posters throughout the rest of the 2000s in the movie theaters because it was all the same. Like it started here with this one. And what we didn't recognize when I was a kid anyway, because everybody was so serious about it, is it was in fact a parody all along. It's just a different kind of parody. Scream and Scary Movie are the same movie. We just never really knew that it was the same movie all along. If that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah, Scary Movie is kind of a parody of a parody.
Bingo.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, Scream truly is a horror comedy. Like it really is a hybrid in genre, but Scary Movie is a straight up comedy that just happens to be spoofing horror films.
Yeah. Like it's
But yeah, but it itself is not a horror film.
Hold on. I need to get back over. Alright, I can see you guys again. Sorry, clicking all over the place. No,
It's all right.
It's not, and this is the funny thing about Scream, which after I learned this, I stopped hating Wes Craven and redirected my hate where it should go. And I'm sorry, Wes Craven, I hated you up until your dying day. Until I learned my hard lesson. It wasn't your fault. It was Kevin Williamson's fault.
I had you all wrong, Wes.
I did. Please fight the ghost of Leonard Nimoy that torments us. But anyways,
You still stand by that you don't have Leonard Nimoy all wrong, though.
I liked Leonard Nimoy, man. That's why I'm sad. He's mad at us. I don't know what to do.
What do you mean us? What do you mean us? He's mad at you specifically.
Well, sir, you guys feel the effects every time Leonard Nimoy does something around here.
Yeah, you're bringing us down with your beef with the ghost of Leonard Nimoy.
I don't want to beef with Leonard Nimoy. I thought he was a friend.
And apologize.
I have apologized.
Properly
I don't know how the
apologize.
hell to apologize to a ghost other than say I'm sorry.
Figure it out. Figure it out.
Oh, well, sure. I should go ask Ed Warren. Stay tuned next week for that one. Anyway. Bolt is biting his lip so hard right now. He wants to browbeat you so bad right now. Audio
Go
for
on
this one.
vacation.
We'll get to that next week, folks. But anyways, this one was a parody, and you know what the irony is that it's telling you it's a parody because you have them listing the rules of horror movies right in front of you, and what it does to mess with you is it throws the rules out the window. which makes it kind of scarier in my book.
Okay.
Because,
How so?
well, up until Scream, Drew Barrymore's character would have been the main character.
Right.
When everybody
Yeah, because it
sees her,
starts out with her,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
and
The beginning is kind of a fake out, both
mhm,
because she's the first character you meet, and because she's a famous actress, and because she's like at the front of the poster.
on all accounts, on top of that, she deceptively fit the mold of the good girl.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So, like, you
Yeah.
think she's gonna be the final girl at the end of this because it should begin with her and end with her, and it doesn't. Like, she gets bumped
Mhm.
off very, very ceremoniously in the beginning, and you're like, oh, okay, wow, uh, this is a thing. And on top of that, it's very gruesome the way she gets taken out, which is,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I guess it made sense that this movie was grounded in reality a little bit too, right? It's based on reality versus
Hmm.
the rest of the subject matters for this one. I
Yeah.
don't know what you
Yeah.
guys know about that. We know about that one, but we'll work our way there whenever you guys are ready to get into that one. 'Cause the
Yeah.
inspiration
Sure.
behind Scream was just a, oof,
That was the real horror movie.
yeah. For those of you who might listen to this and might not know, Scream is inspired by a real case, uh, and we'll get to that case as quick because that one's really dark. I kind of don't want to. Ooh, boy,
Don't
that
want
was
to dwell
dark.
on that too long. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to dwell on that one too long.
Yeah.
Uh, but what I do want to just point out here is, in the sense of parody, is that this movie, what was fun about it was by pointing out the rules, they were able to break the rules, and they were the first ones to do that. The clones wouldn't do it very well afterwards because they're fucking clones, but this one, it did do a good job of breaking those rules, right? Like, by them
Hmm.
calling out virgins don't die in horror movies, it would become a tried and true joke after this movie. But now you're kind of like, wait a minute though. That means there was always a formula when you were a kid that you never realized, and then like, oh wait, yeah, no, the good girl got bumped off in the beginning very brutally.
Yeah.
So did the jock hero boyfriend that sometimes comes to save the day very dumbingly in the beginning of these movies. He got bumped off too. Oh, uh, oh, we're in for it.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as casting decisions go, they were doing something interesting because they had a mix of people that were fairly well established in the horror genre, like Nev Campbell, and then they gave you some like real wild cards. Like, well, just to start with a Drew Barrymore, I don't think she had ever done horror before. I mean, she started with E.T.,
Was
so this was
Firestarter
kind
horror?
Firestarter.
Yeah,
I do not know what that is.
it is. Well, you liked it once again, right? You fucking millennials, you don't know about this stuff. It's a Stephen King movie, which is essentially the X Men before the X Men was a thing, which is a little girl that has powers that can throw fire with her mind. It's out there. You can go track it down. It's a good one. Drew
Yeah,
Barrymore,
yeah.
Firestarter.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong about that one.
And the,
But two major sitcom actors, Henry Winkler, who was Fonzie,
the fonts.
and Courtney Cox, who was whatever her name is on Friends. I hate Friends. Anyway,
Ah, you
um,
too,
uh,
huh? I hate Friends too.
Wow.
Fuck Jennifer
Oh my
Aniston.
what? Yes.
Oh
Okay.
my goodness. Couldn't
Seinfeld's the
go.
life.
We couldn't go without mentioning that.
I'm happy. I have a tag team that hates Friends too. That show wasn't funny. Fuck that show.
Anyway, but both of those actors are playing their opposite in this movie versus what they're best known for playing. I mean, like in Happy Days, the Fonz was the rebel, the cool guy, the guy that was too cool for anyone else, young high school kid. And in this one, he's like an authoritarian principal. And Courtney Cox, now what I read, and this is from Wikipedia, so like from Wikipedia, but Courtney Cox apparently really wanted to be in this movie to play this specific character because she wanted to play her opposite in Friends, because in Friends, she is a very nice girl, but this reporter is a bitch, and Courtney Cox, in her words, wanted to play a bitch. So there's a lot of there's a lot of intentionally subversive casting in this movie. Well, I guess intentionally and accidentally.
Yeah, because you also have David Arquette trying to be the straight man in this one as best as he could.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a very like comical straight man, but he was trying his Dewey. And for those of you who don't know, this was not his first foray into horror. For anybody who doesn't know, he was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer back in the 80s or early 90s.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was the vampire dude. It's like, come on, Pike, let me in. I'm hungry. And David Arquette has been the same dude for like the past 20 years in every movie except for this one.
Yeah. And hadn't Matthew Lillard been in a few things horror
I don't know.
before this?
I don't know horror. I know he. I think he had just wrapped SLC Punk before he did this movie. I think. Like Matthew Lillard is one of those weird dudes, right? Where like he's been around, but you just didn't know that he was around when he was around. You know, like he's like the Gen X version of Pedro Pascal, where like Pedro Pascal has been around, and then when you go looking for him, you're like, oh wait, that dude was in all of these other shows when I was a
He's
kid.
in everything. Yeah.
And I didn't know who he was until he got his head crushed
And it's
in.
funny, I didn't know his name until he played a character where you don't see his face. Oh, sorry. It's funny. I didn't know Pedro Pascal's name until he played a character where you don't see his face.
Pretty much.
In The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. Like,
Yeah.
this is the way. I'm like, yeah, cool. That voice is indistinguishable, but you're like, yeah, but I didn't. This guy's in all this stuff this whole time. You know who else is like that too? Viggo Mortensen. When you start to realize that Viggo Mortensen was in a lot of movies you saw as a kid, you're like, oh, I did not know that. And this is now fascinating. I have to go look at the rest of your catalog, Viggo Mortensen. But he was like one of those. He is like one of those types of dudes, right? Like you're like, oh, okay, yeah, he was around Matthew Lillard, but you just didn't know, and he's still like that. Like he still pops up in certain random films, and you're like, oh yeah, you're in this,
Right.
even if it's very small. Because to everybody, he's just Shaggy.
Yeah. Well, I feel like casting him as Shaggy was deliberate on the part of the Scooby Doo people. They seem to intentionally have gotten actors that had been in at least semi-serious horror movies, like Freddie Prinze Jr. from I Know What You Did Last Summer, Sarah Michelle Gellar from Buffy, Matthew Lillard from Scream, and a few other things.
Before we go ahead and just say that, she was also in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, she was?
Yes, she was.
Oh, cool.
She was actually one of the lead characters. She's the prom queen chick, homecoming queen. But see, that's what I mean, though. Like this movie kind of kicks all that off.
I watched it many summers ago. Perhaps if I watched it last summer, I would have remembered it.
It is current.
Needless to say, that watching it was not one of the things I did last summer.
That was a bad joke. Bad joke. And you both know it.
I approve, though. I slapped my knee to that one.
Old man humor.
You'll get here eventually, old man.
I'm in no rush. I'm in no rush.
It doesn't matter how much you're rushing, it's coming.
Yep.
All the time cannot catch me yet.
Just like this guy did all over the 90s. He came right all over it with this fucking movie because there's so many 90s things about this movie now. Like that dude with the camera.
The way he died was just like...
You know what the fucked up part was?
His name was Kevin.
No, his name was Kenny.
Oh, Kenny. Shit.
I wanted him to feel bad for that fool.
That's what I get for trying to preserve someone's individuality.
Yeah, don't ever do it. Just don't. You save yourself a lot of headache.
I'm sorry, Kenny, but get the fuck off my man.
Gonna get the fuck
No
off my
one.
back.
You know what? All right. Before, I would like to make a correction on Red's part. Courtney Cox's Gail Weathers was not bitchy. They had a bitchy character. There was that stupid cheerleader played like Lenora Cepho. That was the bitchy character in the movie. Gail Weathers
Wait,
was
hold
just
on.
snarky and
That's not.
ruthless.
Isn't that Channing
Wait,
Tatum?
hold on.
What's her name?
Whoa. You don't think that Gail Weathers is a bad person?
No, she was right. She was right at the end of the day.
She's unethical.
Well, she may have been factually correct, but her motives were corrupt.
Yeah,
And
she's
Well,
unethical.
because what no, she said, I could save a man's life. Do you know what that could do for my book sales?
look, you don't save people for free. This is not a.
Well,
this
and
is not
also
like
just the way she
giving
talks with
philanthropist
the way
world.
that she speaks to her cameraman. She
Look,
humiliates
and you know
him.
what?
She's
That's why he
horrible.
died. That's why he died. Good riddance.
Oh, so it's his fault. Now you're
Yeah.
victim blaming.
Yeah, you're blaming the
No,
victim.
I'm
What the hell?
shaming. There's a difference.
You are
If it
one
wasn't for that,
bigoted
he
ass
probably would have
robot.
not died
Oh,
easily.
what is this? Victim
And
shaming.
I am a justice-seeking fish. Thank you very much.
Damn
Well,
straight.
you can seek justice in the Sahara Desert because there will be no water to save you. Meanwhile, I'll be here. The humans that are doing the right things for the wrong reasons, because they still get the job done.
That sounds like
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Perhaps it's doing the right thing for the wrong reason.
that fucking movie Wall-E. So that's what you fantasize about in your night? Just sleeping, cleaning up our debris someday when we're all gone. It's very
I'm not doing
sad,
that.
man. You need to look up. You need to
Making
have a
friends with
happier life.
cockroaches.
Mm-hmm.
You asking for a robot to have a happier life? What kind of oxymoron are you asking for? What kind of? You know that's impossible. Robots can't have a happy life by design. They're robots.
That's their
They're
program.
robots. I mean, really,
Yeah,
robots.
And that's why I call
Enough
you a
about
fucking
that.
robot.
Yeah. Gail Weathers did nothing wrong. If only she should have made the book sooner and give the child a cut of the profits instead of thinking that she was going to take it well and got clocked in her face for it. You know what? That was on her.
I'll send you a copy. Boom.
Ooh, perfect moment.
She
How
nailed
you
it
get
good.
knocked out by a 16-year-old? That's just shameful.
Pow.
Are you insane, man? 16-year-old can knock anybody the fuck out. They're in
A
prime peak
16-year-old
condition.
girl at that time? No.
Yeah.
No.
Didn't you see like the two girls that were at my birthday party when they were 16? That was a fucking double trouble team, man. They knocked the shit out of you.
Look, they were tougher than
Getting-
the female lead in this movie.
No, I mean, you're getting punched by anybody that's like mid-teens and up. You know that can hurt you.
Fuck
You know,
you
like
up.
some more than others, sure.
Not a teenage girl that has intimacy issues.
She also sucker punched her fucking good. I don't think she saw that. I think she probably thought
No,
she was
she
gonna
was
come
staring
back and
right
talk,
at
like.
her.
I think she thought she was gonna come back and make a comment. So when the hand went back, I don't think she thought that shit was a nice right hook coming her way and fucking cowered her down real hard.
Gail should have dodged that.
Yeah.
Or at least saw that she was going to get
But
hit in
yes,
some
before
degree.
we're focusing on the fucking punch from this fucking girl again.
Yeah,
Then again,
yeah.
the Bolt does this all the time. He loops us in. But anyway,
Don't let him do that.
yeah, we gotta stop letting. Correct the AI, man. Correct it. All right. Anyway,
Eric, you should have
glitch. But anyway,
Yeah. What?
bad.
Yeah. I like just sort of the basic. I'm not sure how to put it. Maybe the mechanics of the movie, because, like you said, it does play with the tropes. So there's some ways in which it's like an amplified horror movie. Like in the opening scene, you have the popcorn that is getting bigger and bigger and starting to catch on fire, and that sort of like parallels the tension of the scene. Where he's getting closer and closer, she's in more and more in danger, and then it pans to the popcorn. It's like this really heavy-handed symbolism that is a kind of parody of horror movies, and it does some interesting stuff with music, where it's like in as schooled as horror movies as we are, we know like when the guy's gonna pop out. Like the music gets really high, and then she looks behind the door, and it's like, oh, nothing. and then it turns out that he's behind her. Like,
Yeah.
that's how it always works. But in this movie, it's like the music swells in that way at like random moments. So it's sort of like, is something going to happen? Oh, nope, nope. Yeah. So it's kind of it's kind of playing with your expectations in that way, in such a way where it reveals to you what your expectations are. It's sort of like, oh yeah, like what you were saying before, where it's like, oh wait, that is a rule. I didn't know that before. It's doing the same thing, not just with character tropes, but with like just sort of these subtle mechanics of how horror films work.
Yeah. My favorite sequence of that, fucking, we're gonna go ahead, but whatever. We're jumping all over. This one has just so much to cover, especially when the real situation that happened with that guy who was fucked up. My favorite sequence is behind you, man, behind you, Jamie. He's right there, behind you, and like you're like apparently Wes Craven intended the effect to be like, no, motherfucker, behind you, behind you, Randy. He's looking at you. He's coming. And if it weren't because she shouted help, he would have fucking finished him right there and then walked outside and made his way to the van. But she was always their intended target. That's how it went down. But yes, should we talk about the two killers for this movie? Spoiler alert for a 20-something-year-old movie. Or do you guys want to hold on that one?
Well, are you talking about the real life case?
The ghost face killer. The other guy's the Florida dude. About we'll transition when we talk about these guys, and then I guess it kind of helps a little bit. Because oddly enough, I think there was a small parallel between the two of them in real life as well.
Okay.
I thought like one mainly did the killing, or
because there was apparently it's come out over the years. They did do a duet. People have like. I think they did discuss who did which one, who took turns on which one, to my understanding.
Okay.
That's how I've understood
I actually don't know. I actually don't know the Ghostface story.
So, well, let's go into first with the guys in the film, if you guys want to talk about who they were in the film. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, wash up Skeet Ulrich playing Billy, and former Yesterday's star Stu Macher were played by what's that fucking guy's name again? Matt Lillard. Both of them turned out to be the killers in this movie, and they do actually lay it out pretty well, giving the hints that it's them. Like I actually am gonna say it was a decent cover up to who's like they gave you enough hints if you're paying attention. You're telling me that guy's not a killer? Come on, that guy's a killer.
Right. Yeah.
And then like,
one of the things that I really like about watching movies from the 90s is that you have cell phones, but it's just there. It's not that the cell phones themselves are different, but people's relationship with cell phones is very different than ours. So in this movie, the fact that Billy has a cell phone on him is incriminating. And that's just very funny to me. Yeah, it falls out of his pocket, and the sheriff is like, "What were you doing with a cellular phone, son?" And they keep saying the word cellular phone.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that got weirded out by that.
Yeah, it's different because when you watch like movies that take place before the 90s, it's like cell phones just aren't a thing. So that's all you need to know. No one's going to have a cell phone. But in the 90s, it's like it's sort of like this uncanny valley thing where it's like the fact that there are cell phones but they're not ours makes it more weird than just watching a movie where there's no cell phones.
Yep.
Yeah.
It actually goes back though to nostalgia. It's like when I was a kid, right? Remember in Hey Arnold, Big Bob's beepers?
The beepers, yes.
Yeah,
Big Bob's
right?
beepers.
And like Big Bob had a major empire of beepers, and then like now when you go back and watch Hey Arnold, like I watched it with my nephew, I was like, "What's a beeper?" I'm like,
"What's a beeper?" Indeed.
You don't need to know, and you don't want to know. Things were pointless.
I very vaguely remember them.
I remember seeing them on my parents for like a year, not even. And then my dad's like, I don't need this crap, and he deactivated it. And then that was the end of that because the cell phone had a caller ID on it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then that was the beginning of merging things and getting rid of them. But like, I vaguely remember a beeper, but now when you see a beeper in a movie, you're like, what the hell is that thing? Oh, that's right. That's a beeper.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But this one, like, I get what you're saying. It's like, wait a minute. Why is it such a big deal that he has a cell phone? Like, oh, wait a minute. That's because back in the day, a cell phone was expensive. That was a
Right.
really
Yeah.
expensive tool back in the day. If you owned a cell phone, like, it was just not unheard of for a teenager at that to have a cell phone. And, like, to my understanding, isn't Billy like white trash?
I don't know. I don't know if that's really established.
Because, like, I his dad was. I always get that confused with that guy because you don't know much about his life, like outside that
No,
he
no, you
wants
don't.
to waste Nev Campbell, and that's about it.
Yeah.
You don't know much about him. Like he's a very one note character, Billy. And I actually feel that there was more to explore there with Billy. But if you do, then you kind of give it away. Like it's really his motive is, I think, one of the driving forces of the whole story. But
Well, his motive is, I mean, isn't his motive kind of ironic? I mean, his motive is kind of to demonstrate that, well, as he says, this is the millennium. There are no motives. It was sort of like this exercise in postmodernism of like, why do I need a motive?
yes, but then he does reveal he did have a motive all along. He did have a motive all along. Like it's just we don't like it's very quick when he says it, but then you're like, oh, that makes
Which
sense.
part are you? Which part are
In
you
the
talking
same
about?
line as he says, why do I need one? But maybe this is motive enough
Yeah.
for you. Your mom was
Yeah.
fucking my dad, and it's
Oh,
because
right.
of your
That's right.
slut
Yeah.
whore mother that my mom moved out and abandoned me. Is that motive enough for you? I'm like, oh, okay. That's
Yeah, that
that's
makes sense.
that's
Yeah.
why you
It
did
would
it.
have made more sense if he like went after her for getting his dad in prison for falsely identifying
His,
him
his dad
as
wasn't
his.
in prison. His dad was right there with him.
No, I'm saying like since she falsely identified his dad as her mom's killer, that should have been a better reason as opposed to, oh, your mom cheated on your dad with my dad, so I'm gonna just make your life hell, even though you had nothing to do with this.
Wait,
Because apparently
explain
she
that
had a
one.
reputation around town for being like the town whore, even though it was only confirmed she only did this with
Right.
that guy.
Well, but that was his motive. So the cheating, that was his motive for killing her mother.
Yeah,
But then what's his motive for continuing on just a killing spree?
he wanted to kill her and then make it seem like the dad had kind of just snapped. Like that's what it was. Like the idea was he was gonna like he couldn't the dad couldn't take the grief and the idea that his mom was cheating, his wife was cheating on him. So he was gonna kill his daughter, her friends, and then kill a bunch of her friends in a mad killing spree, and they were gonna frame the dad. So they were gonna shoot her and then shoot the dad, make it seem like dad shot himself. It was a really elaborate plot, but
Yeah,
that's
well, so what I'm saying is that why do all of that after getting the mother? The
so.
mother is the
Kill the
one that,
principal.
like, I'm not saying that I'm not, of course, not
I
saying
know
he
the
was
mother's
just
the one who did it,
wrong.
right? But that's actually like the theme with the rest of these fucking movies. Because like after a while, right, one of my gripes with the Scream movie is, and I'll tell you guys a spoiler for the rest of the franchise. Everyone is pissed at Sydney's mom because Sydney's mom has got it going on apparently. So Sydney's mom has a really dark history, and in every reveal, it turns into something that they did regarding that fucking lady, and they all have to go take it out on poor Sidney Prescott, who's minding her own goddamn business. All of these movies are the same thing. It's like, and I'll do the monologues, like I remember them. Your mom was fucking my dad. And that's when my mom moved out and abandoned me. How's that for a motive, Sid? Yeah, man! In the back. Part 2. I remember this one. I impersonated one, so it's so funny. How about blame the movies? That's Mickey's idea, but mine is just good old-fashioned revenge. Your mom fucked my husband, and you killed my son. The third one.
Oh.
The third one. I'll never forget this one. I remember sitting in the theater. I'm like, really? Poor fucking woman. I showed up one day and I knocked on the door. And I hoped my mother would recognize me, her own son. And then she closed the door and she said, I have no son. And then I heard you calling mommy. And I saw you. And from that moment, I hated you and everything that you were. I'm like, really, man? All 3 movies were all about that until like 2010 we get the reboot, which is even weirder. But anyways, what are those movies? Honestly, what it was weird about them though is that there is a motive, and sometimes motives don't have to make sense. Like the guy who the movies were really based on. Who wants to lead in?
He had more
this one?
sense. Like the original.
Right.
No, that
We're
guy
talking
had
about the
no.
Gainesville murders, right?
The Gainesville murders. So for
Yeah.
those of you who might know your Scream lore really well, I'm about to kind of introduce another chapter here for you. Don't dwell on this one because this was really fucking dark. So when Kevin Williams was writing this movie, I'm not gonna say his full name because fuck him. When he was writing these movies, the way he came up with the idea was on a news article. He heard about 6 slayings on a campus. And then that's how he came up with the idea to create Scream, right? So his creativity comes from the weirdest places. It would go unsolved for a long time, and then 10 years after the films came out was when the guy was actually finally put on death row and executed. However, the actual killer, and I had to actually like filter my sight for a little bit because I went a little further than I should have when I looked this one up. Oh boy, his name even evades me. If anybody needs help looking this one up, anybody?
Oh, I'm
Hold on.
Danny Rolling.
Danny Rolling, yeah,
Yeah.
the Danny Rolling, the Gainesville Ripper. So this is one of those times where I'm actually going to say why this film I think endures. People do shit like this in real life for less sensical reasons. And in my book, as far as I can tell, this guy's motive was, I was a failure, and I'll show you that I can actually do something.
Yeah.
And it's just nonsensical in my book. Trying to show people that you can do something is just awful. And he was broken home.
So we watched I think some of us watched this one specific documentary on that case, and when I was hearing the criminologists say, this was he had been a failure at everything else in his life. This was his way of showing that he could do something right, that he was good at something. And when I heard them saying that, I was a little skeptical because I mean, sometimes trying to read motivation into a serial killer's mind almost feels like an exercise in like literary criticism, where it's like you're looking for symbolism, you're looking for you're looking for these kind of like oblique motivations, and I'm just sort of like, I mean, there's no way you can really know that. But then at the end they play recordings of this guy that he made, where he's basically like confirming what the criminologists were saying, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, looks like sometimes looks like sometimes there really is some sort of like, I don't know, personal motivation for these things rather than just blind insanity.
Yeah, like a heavy sense of control or something. It's just insane when you look at what this guy was doing. Like, holy shit, all of this because you needed to feel like a man.
Yeah, he needed to prove something to himself.
Yeah. And all these
which for for honest endeavors can be a good motivation, but for something like this, no.
And not to an abusive father who was ironically a cop too, and not to the ex-wife that left you, which
Yeah.
basically determined his victims, unfortunately, as it was all basically to get back at her.
Yeah, yeah, because all of the women that he murdered fit her profile, petite brunettes. Yeah,
I will never
yes.
understand that
So
logic.
really
Except for the
ugly
one
stuff.
guy, the guy who was unfortunate.
Yeah, really ugly stuff. If you look it up, you can find details on how he left his crime scenes. But yeah,
Yeah,
Very depraved.
the reason why we're gonna gloss this one as quick as we can is because fuck that guy. He did that for the notoriety, and we're just covering him as a sense as to he's a cog in an artistic piece, not in that he is the center of attention. Cause fuck him, he doesn't need any more attention. He's burning in hell right now somewhere. He had the
Oh, he
nerve.
died.
He had the nerve in the middle of the court and be like, "You are not the monster that I painted you. I'm not the monster that you paint me out to be." Like, hey, yeah, you just like getting a rise out of people and pissing them off. You're a fucking monster.
well, he started blaming multiple personalities. Then he kind of then he seems to have changed his story towards the end, where the day before he was to be executed by the state of Florida, right? He was executed in Florida.
Yep.
Yep,
Okay,
they
yeah.
still have the death penalty.
So yeah. So the day before he was to be executed, he wrote a confession of the first murders that he committed in Louisiana, where he grew up, where he said, it was me and me alone. So it's like, first I'm crazy, but no, I'm not actually crazy. It was actually me. Yeah.
Yeah, and that me alone
It's
thing.
not, and it's not unusual for murderers to change their stories for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, Ted Bundy did it a lot.
Yeah.
Not only did he do it a lot to buy more time, he would go around showing people where he had buried more people after a while. Ugh, the fucking guy. And then you get
He
into
also
this.
represented himself at trial too.
Oh yeah, yes he did, because he was a law student. And interestingly enough, if it hadn't been for that piece of evidence he left behind, he would have gotten off.
Yeah.
But this guy, though, the reason why I also feel it's important to show how he's a cog is because sometimes, right, people look at a movie, and I think that's what Wes Craven was trying to hit home with this one. Sometimes people will look at a film and go, that can't happen, right? And then you're like, no, right? That can't happen. And then you find out, yeah, no, something less sensical than a dude being mad that his mom slept with his girlfriend's dad. No, his dad slept with his girlfriend's mom was not as insane as what really happened. And especially when you go look at the Stu, I feel like he's based more on Stu Macher for some reason. I don't know if he's really Billy. Like I feel like they added Billy in to not make this guy just be total whack nuts, right?
My impression is that is that Kevin Williamson was trying to write a movie, and he just happened to hear about some murderers, and he's like, "Oh, I can write a movie about murder."
Yeah.
That seems to be the extent of the inspiration. I don't think it's really closely based on that case at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because I'm sitting here, I'm like, wait a minute. But even then, like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, what's crazy is like that other guy reminds me more of this. And then there's times about it where I'm like, is this? I don't. It's so weird. But somebody help me transition back to the film here, please.
So on that summer note, let's talk about the funny things, like how Ghostface did so many backflips after getting hit in comedic ways in the crotch by beer bottles of all things for the most part. Like you would think that they would have gone away by the amount of times they laid his ass out.
They laid him out. It's two different dudes.
Yeah,
hit
and
one,
they both
and
got
the
laid
other
out.
one recovers, and they hit the other one. The other one recovers and does it again and again and again and again.
Just like seriously, like
One after the other.
try to doggy door. I'm just like, why don't you just try to escape out the first way? Just open up the freaking garage and then clock him just to make sure that he doesn't like hit the button again. Just crawl out. Like there was enough time to do that. No, let me go to the doggy door.
Actually, that was my question to you guys. Would you guys ever try to escape through a doggy door?
I mean, Tatum was not in her right mind.
No, she obviously.
I
was
mean,
not.
she beat his ass decently enough. I mean,
She did pretty good up until trying to crawl out the doggy door, but
Yeah, I'm like,
I mean, maybe that was her best shot. Like
no, her best
she
shot
didn't have
was grabbing
control
one.
over whether the garage door was going to open or not. This was the 90s, so maybe garage doors didn't have the electric eyes that they have now. Of course, if the garage door is going up and you're stuck in the doggy door, then then even if it did have an electric eye, it wouldn't stop. So I don't know.
I just have to say
But
something.
yeah,
Sorry. Yeah.
go ahead. No. I'm done.
All right. This camera thing is working, but not all the way yet. We need to get it. We need to start learning cues so we can get this right.
We'll see. No, so dear audio audience, we're trying a new method where we have our cameras on in this conversation so that we can use visual cues to avoid talking over each other. But the thing is that when I'm talking right now, I'm not looking at the. That's the.
Me too.
it's your idea too.
You need to be more eye catching. You need to wear a werewolf mask or something. There we go. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my.
But anyways, dude,
That's the signal.
my thing is, what's funny is this is how you know she's not a Latina. She's a girl that like lives in the valley, never had to go down south to the parts of like LA like this. That first 40 she threw at him should have put him down, and then she should have grabbed a jagged piece of that and gone for it. You know, at that point, like the door is locked. There's no way you're gonna get to that doggy door in safety in time. It's either that or you start screaming at the top of your lungs, and maybe hopefully somebody will hear you in that very quiet house party that everybody's having.
It's fight or flight.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like she did the right thing. Like she knocked him out, went for the door. Like, oh shit, the door's locked. She picked up another bottle and hit him twice. I'm like, good for you, lady. Like this is shit right here. But she had 40s. Like in that third 40 or something, you gotta go for it and just like smash it over his head and start. You gotta do something at that point. But
yeah, one thing that I've always liked about this movie is that the victims, even if they are meeting a certain demise, they do get some pretty good hits in. There's a lot of there's a lot of like opening doors into Ghostface's face. There's a lot of good like smashing bottles, overheads. Yeah, they put up a pretty good fight.
Because I think that's what people would do, though. Like in every story you ever hear about somebody, like there's always a scuffle. Every crime scene story, like you always hear the victim fought their way to this part. That's where there's claw marks here, claw marks there. They're looking for somebody that might have a claw mark on the face. Right. Keep an eye out.
That's right. This table has been moved. There was a struggle.
Mm-hmm. There's always a struggle, right? When you hear about crime scenes. It's only very rare, randomly, where you don't hear a struggle like that, and that's when it's really creepy, because that means the guy might have been like in the house, hiding
or he's trained
for a while,
or he's just trained and he knows how to take them down instantly or without little to no resistance.
Someone's thought about this.
I was gonna say, like,
I watched enough Law and Order episodes to kind of like weed out, okay, who's like mediocre killer stories versus they have a real predator on their hands. The only way they actually get any headway in this case is they get extremely lucky, and that's when the writers come in and write in the plot MacGuffin that allows them to find this serial killer.
That's right, Scooby.
You know a professional what to see when it seems.
But yeah, it is wild though. Like, yeah, like you mentioned, all of those encounters, like they put up a decent fight. Even the first girl in the beginning, like she didn't put up as well of a fight as the others, but like the fact that she was still going out while dying, like she she even tried to scream. Her throat was like damaged. But the funny thing I like to point out is like they assumed that all like the Ghostface killer was this going to be a guy, so they all went for nut shots. Every single one of these
Well, he
victims
looked
went for
like a
nut shots.
dude.
It looked like a guy in a mask.
If someone is breaking into your house and running at you with a knife, it's almost certainly a dude. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
statistically speaking, it's most likely a dude.
Yeah, statistically speaking, it's almost always a dude.
They even said that in the
Say.
movie, like it's most likely a guy, because I think what the garage death woman says, "Hey, how do you know it's a dude?" Well, he lifted her up and cut her open. You need a man's strength to do that. And in 1996, it is very few bodybuilding women that can do that.
Yeah, he was speaking as a sexist, not a statistician, but sometimes sexist and statisticians come to the same conclusions.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
but like,
unfortunately.
imagine being that one victim that gets the outlier, the female smart killer that you can't just nut shot.
The victims of Aileen Wuornos.
There you go. Yeah, they can't take advantage of that male anatomy weakness. They think it's something else.
Yeah. So, I actually did want to ask you guys though, because this one, it's supposed to be a horror movie, and we made a point earlier. There's like 30 minutes that go by without a kill until they off principal fonts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until
Poor
they
man.
off the fonts, like we're at a long period of quiet there with no kills whatsoever in this thing. So, outside of Channing's murder, what was another murder you guys enjoyed in this? Channing, what was her name? I was keep calling her Channing Tatum, and I don't mean to.
Wait, you said?
Oh, Tatum.
Tatum. I keep calling her Channing Tatum.
Yeah, she's the gal that gets knocked off in the garage door.
Yes. Aside from her death, what other deaths did you enjoy in this film? Or do you think aged decently?
Oh, I'm gonna call this one right now. The freaking cameraman. Like his death was hilarious.
You find that funny now because you found out his name.
That made it even more funny. Like, I was gonna say his regardless, but the fact that his name was. Oh my goodness! What,
Well,
no, actually no. His wait, hold on. Yeah, Kenny.
Kenny. I keep wanting to call him Kevin. I'm confusing him with the writer.
It's alright. You got the first letter right.
Maybe I'm implicitly revealing some sort of murderous rage towards Kevin Williamson. I don't know.
From our discussion off air, it seems like you weren't exactly a fan of what he did to the genre, neither, with this movie.
But there was no rage. Just
no rage. No rage. No.
Disappoint.
Only love. Only love. Well, so my favorite death though is in your dreams, TV on the face. Yeah.
Although there was a fan theory he didn't die there.
Well, I mean, that is not certain death, I guess. I don't know.
Because apparently, like,
he was CRTV.
He was continuously rewritten to come back a few times, and then they switched the ending.
Yeah, he does make appearances later.
No, he was supposed to, and then they're like, no, we don't like that, and they just switch him out. They just, like, cut his scenes or whatever, like him scarred from the TV.
Oh, I thought I read that he makes appearances in later installments.
Yeah, no, they would cut him out, but in the latest installment, what they did that was very stupid was it turns out Billy was sleeping with somebody else behind Sydney's back, and then it makes him a fucking hypocrite. And then he had a daughter, which was the main character that just got fired from the latest round of Scream movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait,
yeah, she got fired for talking about Israel.
I think
it happened like a year ago. That's not me making it political. That's what happened. She was talking about that.
Oh, no, yeah.
And then Jenna Ortega's like, if you think I'm about to be your final girl, like, you're fucking wrong. I'm doing Wednesday and I'm getting movies now, so yeah, I'm out too. Fuck this. Leaving them essentially without any final girls left for the Rudderless franchise.
Yeah.
Again. It was very fascinating things that happened with that one, but yeah, they tried to retcon that. That's stupid.
I really don't like retconning.
Yeah, it's stupid. You could have just made the dad Stu Macher. It would have been cooler, especially
Yeah.
since
Well, because then it changes your experience of the first movie in a way that it wasn't intended to by the original filmmakers.
yeah. Like, oh, okay,
I
so
don't like
yeah, it's like, oh, it's just stupid that the whole time he was really just cheating on her for no reason. Like
Yeah.
he was just horny for her, even though he was getting laid elsewhere, and not only that, he had a daughter all along. I guess it's stupid.
that.
And then she sees him in CGI ghost visions. I'm not kidding.
You lost me at reboot. Oh,
She's in
like the amount of brain cells that just died.
Yeah, it was a very stupid movie, and I'm actually gonna like point out one other thing too. Um, the dude we talked about today was not the only dude to have actually dealt with something Scream related. Um, there were people inspired by the film that then went ahead and did something like that. And then the fifth film, it just shows how ignorant the writers were. They actually used their real motives and put those motives in the film. I don't know if it was intentional or not.
Wait, so you're saying that there were people that saw Scream and then went out and did something similar
Yeah,
in real life? Were there any murders?
They murdered these two guys. Wore a face mask and dressed up in the outfit and got ready and killed one of their friends. And then they did it because they themselves wanted to become slasher villains, like in Scream. So
Right.
then the premise for Scream 5 was, yeah, we also just want to be slasher villains, so we're mimicking everything that we saw in the town and the house and everything and doing a remake. That was the plot of Scream 5.
That sounds sick.
And it's sick, and then it's like, that happened in real life. You guys suck. You should really pay attention because there was a case of something that happened just like that in real life. So needless to say, I'm not a big fan of 5 and onwards. I didn't see 4. I didn't bother. But 5 and onwards, I'm like, no. It was, you had your heart in the right place, but you're just, no. We're good. I skipped the latest one. I didn't see it. I got told it was good, but I don't want to see it. That's where I ended with that one. But no, these films, though, I am going to give them their flowers to an extent because I am still in the camp that they kind of defined that generation for a lot of people who got into horror. Like, I know a lot of people got into horror in Scream. And to me, the most haunting death in these films was the first one with Drew Barrymore.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll tell you why it's haunting. When the mom picks up the phone and she hears it happening on its outside, I'm like,
That I think that was the closest thing this movie got to actually coming close to horror.
Yeah. Well, the other stuff about it is horrifying.
Yeah,
yeah.
but,
No,
like
I
the
mean-
movie on its own without all those other stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the way, there is something that my dad realized that I told him when we were watching it because he was like, "How do you know this?" As soon as the dad finds out that he hears that lion go dead, it's like, my daughter's getting murdered outside. Something's wrong. Go next door. Get in the car. Go next door and call the police. Yeah, don't ever do that. For your own good. Don't ever do that. He literally sent his wife out to a potential murder ground to go out there and try and save the day. Don't ever do that for anybody's sake. But now I'm just rambling.
Even if you have a weapon and you are good with said weapon, if it's ranged, preferably.
Don't do that. Just don't. Just stay put. Wait till the lion comes back and call the cops from the inside the house. Don't go outside and try and save the day. You are not.
Mine never comes back.
You are not It Man. You are not gonna go out there and disarm the guy and hit him 10 times in the head and save the day. That's not how it works. But yes. So, I'm trying to tag our time here. So, regarding Screams, I feel like after we talked about that sick bastard, we kind of have a hard time here. So I'm going to go ahead and just say we're hitting the hour mark. So what do you guys ultimately think of this film? just want your like general like best opinion. Just fuck that guy. He ruined our vibe too. Fuck him. Oh man.
Barring that guy aside, like this movie was more funny than horror, which I'm just like, huh. I kind of wanna see the rest of those, but after that those like monologue for those future killers reason to go after Sid again and again and again, I'm just like, I'm good. I'm good just leaving it at this series being a one and done.
Yeah, the Gen Xers that I know will be pissed at how I generalized. Like, it's not just that; it was more than that. I'm like, dude, that's literally the reveal of all three killers. Like, I've seen. You know, you didn't give these movies a chance. Yes, I did. I just I revealed to you what happened. But yeah, how about you, Red? What was your opinion on this one?
Well, I do like it a lot. It is I think it's deservedly a classic. I guess in that way it's a meta classic. But it's I'm working on something here. I'm working on the movie does confront like just sort of the entire concept of making entertainment out of horrific things that happen. I feel like that scene where the two kids in the high school are running up and down the hallways with the ghost face mask on mockingly. And then Henry Winkler takes them into the principal's office and has like a really good moment where he's like channeling all of our feelings about what these two kids have done. You know, like just made a joke out of something horrific that just happened in their community. But I feel like that scene is meant to make us think, wait, is that what horror movies are? Are we doing the same thing as what those kids were doing by watching people get brutally slaughtered for entertainment?
Nowadays,
You know?
I think so. Yeah, more so nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah. And then there's the issue of, well, I mean, you know, does this actually do horror films have an impact on human behavior and the way that we think about brutal things that happen? Do they desensitize us to things? Do they, like, you know, would there? I don't know. It's a hard question. Would there be less murder if there weren't horror films?
so
It's but you know, maybe the movie maybe takes a final position on this where it says movies don't create psychos, they just make psychos more creative.
I was just gonna say the line. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think these are some tough questions, and I think that you know, a lot of horror fans kind of do sometimes struggle with the idea of watching horrible things happen for entertainment, even if they're fictional. You know, like, and I mean, like, watching a horror film is a lot different than watching a snuff movie. I'm not saying they're the same thing.
They're not. I just watched Hannibal Holocaust.
Oh,
why?
that movie was actually brought to some like international court.
Oh, I
because
know.
the violence
That's a
is so
subject for us
realistic.
to cover one day.
Yeah, supposedly the violence is so realistic that some people were like, "Hold on, we need to look into this."
Wouldn't it be classified as a documentary then?
No,
Or is
no.
accuracy-
It's a mockumentary, but
It would be
so
it
halfway.
would be a documentary if the killings were like accidental, or if they were like I don't know, if the filmmakers were observers. But no, like this was I think it must have been the deaths were clearly staged, but they were so realistic that some people thought that this was in need of investigation. Apparently, the only thing they did kill was like a turtle, but
yeah.
Oh, PETA is gonna be on them.
They
Yeah,
were, but then
yes,
they're like, we don't care.
they didn't get the seal from the American Humane Society.
Pretty much.
Oh,
Yeah, though apparently to get an American Humane Society seal, like someone from the Humane Society just needs to show up for like a day, and then they get the seal. But
seriously?
Yep.
that was
That's it.
something at the end of this movie where they had the American Humane Society seal on the credits, and I was like, were there any animals? I can't think of any animals that were in this movie.
It does that on occasion when you see stuff like a bird, or when there's like a monkey for like a split second, or a horse in the background. Like all these things are there because they just need the animal to chill for like a few minutes, and that's it to capture
Right.
the shots.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, like maybe in one shot someone was walking their dog or something, but I
Yep.
couldn't think of any animals in the
I
movie.
don't recall a single animal. Just a lot
No,
of like teenagers and adults. That's it. There was not
yeah,
even a child, thankfully.
Well,
no
not
children.
in this one. Scream, there were no animals. In the other one, there was animals. They killed a turtle. But anyways, back to Scream.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. In
Cannibal
Cannibal
Holocaust.
Holocaust,
Yeah, they
I
killed a
feel
turtle.
I feel horrible just
Sorry.
saying the name
You're
of
a
that.
terrible listener for a robot, Bolt. The fuck? It's like
I
the
need
third
a
time
software
in one
upgrade,
go.
man.
Time for an upgrade. Upgrade the AI. You loop us and shit, and you don't listen.
No, you loop yourself. Take some responsibility.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I will want to ask you guys about, though. Have you guys ever looked up the definition of parody?
No.
A few
Well,
times.
so I have a personal theory on this, but go ahead.
Well, give me your theory, and I'll give you the definition.
So I define parody by comparing it to satire.
Okay.
So parody, I think, is well, the real difference between parody and satire is that satire is trying to make a serious point, whereas parody is not. So, like in a political cartoon where it's like some politician, I don't know, like riding a moose, and that's meant to represent his bad tax policy or something like that. Um, uh, that is humorous often, and it's meant to make a serious point. Whereas parody, it's not really trying to say anything, and it's also satire is critique. So the politician on the moose, you're critiquing his tax policy. Whereas when a movie like Scary Movie makes fun of Scream or The Usual Suspects or The Sixth Sense, it's not like criticizing those movies. It's just using your familiarity with those movies in order to make a joke.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the way.
Like you can have there's such a thing as an affectionate parody. I'm not sure if there's such thing as an affectionate satire. Maybe you could, but for the most part satire is like biting and critical.
And scathing. Don't forget
Yes.
scathing.
Good word.
The way
So what was it that you had, Jack?
So the official definition of parody is an imitation of the style of a particular writer, artist, or genre with deliberate exaggeration for comic effect. So, what a lot of folks didn't realize when this movie was coming out was it is in fact a parody, deliberate
Right.
parody for comic effect. It's just very avant-garde, as they would say. But
Yes.
it's a different style of parody. I didn't realize until college. One of my professors, he explained to me, he's like, you're gonna read a lot of satirical cartoons and a lot of parody cartoons when you start studying for things, because satire is usually aimed at real things, at people.
Here we go.
Parody
Yeah.
is aimed at art, and it's usually a way of making fun of the product an artist would make. I'm like, define that, just to be clear. He's like, okay. He goes, a satire of Andy Warhol is showing him with the pale hair and being all weird. You're making fun of him. It's a satirical kind of joke. However, showing one of his films in a very odd, out there kind of way, Andy Warhol presents Lassie, like in Family Guy, and it's just like weird, out there thing that makes no sense. That is parody because you're mocking and mimicking his work. I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
this whole film is a parody of horror tropes from the 80s being told to you in the 90s. But what it does unapologetically and unintentionally, I feel, is it removes the rules and leaves anybody open for at any given time. So much so, like, we haven't talked about this guy. I was gonna ask you guys real quick about him too. The Randy character pretty much is dismantling the formula as they go, and he's inadvertently telling the two killers that he's ruining, that they're kind of like being hackney with their formula. So I feel that's why they're moving along like, wait a minute, this is our masterpiece, this is our work of art. Because this guy's kind of like, watch a movie. There's a formula to all this shit.
There's a very specific formula.
Instead of
Yeah.
formula, they should
Well,
just watch prom
and
night.
I think that, yeah, and I think related to my point, um, it's an affectionate parody. I mean, Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven didn't make this movie in order to offer critiques of Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street or Prom Night. No, it's like they love these movies. They love this kind. They love this kind of thing, and they've thought about it quite a bit. And they just thought, like we could make this into an interesting study of the genre. We could make it funny, So it's not like, but if it were a satire, if they were looking for to satirize things, I think that they would actually be offering like a bit of criticism.
Yeah, like if it were a satire, I feel that they would have actually made fun of the real John Carpenter, and I feel like they would have made fun of like actual, like Robert Englund would have eventually made an appearance as opposed to Principal Fonts. Like it's kind of making fun of Wes Craven's works, but I feel like Wes Craven in his book when he read it was probably like, there's a way to do this humorous, but not to go too far. He found like the Goldilocks of parodies with this one, where it's like caring, giving its nods. However, we're gonna now take your old way, throw it out the window, and do something new with it. And it worked the
Right.
first time, until the second time and the third time stopped working, and then Wes Craven liked the smell of his own farts towards the end. Because I'm gonna be honest, like I feel that unfortunately Wes Craven towards the end of his run was more comical in nature than he was trying to be scary. Like it was. If you ever go watch the rest of these films, they're kind of like they're more funny, and they really keep poking at like, well, we're in the third one now, so that means anybody can go. Sydney, that means you too. Because spoiler alert, like they kill Randy in the second one, and I really felt that they regretted doing that because they lost their
No way.
Yeah, man, this movie's been around for like 30 years. You should have watched it by now.
I only knew
I've
about
seen
the first one. She told you something.
Yeah, I've seen the second one and the third one, but I watched them a long time ago, so I don't really.
I only had to see them once, and they scarred me for life. I'm like, all right, we're good. And then I did rewatch them recently for this, in preparation for all of this. And as I was watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I was annoyed with these films. Poor girl just can't catch a break. She's minding her own damn business.
She lives into the fourth one, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's where she gets
Well,
killed off.
I
don't know.
Bolt, word on the street is that you watched Scary Movie before you watched Scream.
Yes.
So, do you think that were you able to enjoy Scream at all, having watched the parody of the parody?
Yes, but I will say the Scary Movie was the better parody, unfortunately. But that's not to say anything bad about Scream. The thing is, I just went into Scream like thinking it was just gonna be funny. Like I was trying to see if there was gonna be any like horror things that are gonna last more than 5 seconds, and the opening was the most I saw. There was like maybe one like unnecessary gotcha like scream or jump scare. I'm just like nah. It was the opening. After that, it was just like wow. This girl, I just kind of felt the rest of the movie feeling bad for Sid because she's hearing all this bad stuff about her mom that is being unsubstantiated. You have a reporter doing her job badly. She was right, but she was doing her job badly. And just can't catch a break. And her dad is an absentee father who somehow gets jumped by 2 teenagers. And
okay, you can get jumped by 2 teenagers at any given time. I'm pretty sure right now if I were to walk outside, 2 teenagers would probably beat the ever-loving shit out of me and take my stuff, no problem.
I wonder how they did it, though. I kind of wish they showed that. Because he was on his way to the airport.
Then you miss the aura of the mystery, man.
He missed his conference. Yeah.
I mean, that went out the window when he explained his reason why he was doing it to his girlfriend of all things after he just had sex with her. I'm like, what? What kind of post-coitus mentality is this?
Because he hated his girlfriend because he was mad that his mom, her mother slept with his dad, and that was like the reasoning behind it. But then go kill the dad. Don't kill your girlfriend. Like it's just.
I mean, he would kill the wife.
Again, like that's the motive for why he killed her mother, but it's still, but I think that the motive for continuing the following year is more just like this postmodernist exercise and like what does it all mean? What even is a motive, man?
Yeah, that's where the unhinged nature comes in.
There's peer pressure. That's what you explained it away. Peer pressure.
Peer pressure. I love that moment. Dude, why did you do it? Peer pressure. Because nobody who is experiencing peer pressure says the word peer pressure.
Not only does he say, he says it like a fucking kid.
Yeah, it's just another example of the movie going meta.
Oh man.
Peer pressure. Yeah. I felt the things with pressure in public. My parents. Yeah. Did you really call the cops?
You're gonna be so mad.
And then he snaps like.
Yeah. It's like, that was his like lying gasp.
He's a fundamentally weak character. But what I wanted to ask after talking about the Scary Movie parody was, do you guys think that parodies ruin the source material for you?
Yes.
In this case, yes.
So the Wayans brothers are responsible for ruining a good chunk of films for me over the years. Mm-hmm. They ruined almost all the slasher films from that era. Because even this movie, as I was watching it, I find myself like remembering the moments in the Scary Movie.
Yeah.
The best one is like when she's like, Ma says when I'm in this outfit, I'm supposed to treat me like a man of the law. And then she's like, all right, Dewey boy, I'm leaving. I just remember the scene in Scary Movie. Well, Mom also says for you to stop sticking your dick in the vacuum cleaner. Then when like the cop call, when he gets the creepy call to the house, he comes out like, hello. I just remember, I said, don't disturb me while I'm cleaning my room. Oh man, then there was there's a bunch of stuff like we played Dead by Daylight together. Dead by Daylight. Fucking dude has me saying it wrong. Dead by Daylight. Every time we play, we get the ghost face. I start shouting, "Oh shit, it's Doofy!"
Oh man, it's weird because that's the only time I'm actually afraid of him, and it's only for like when I either see him before he gets a jump on any of us, or when he comes out of nowhere and essentially scares the shit out of me. That's the only time I ever feared this motherfucker. After that, it's just like I can't. I yell at him, I make fun of him, I like teabag with him. It's just like I can't take him seriously after
that. One time I started getting really mad and I started yelling, "Fuck you, Skeet Ulrich! You're a fucking wash-up has-been." You never did nothing after Scream. You fucking suck, Skeet Ulrich.
And did you die after that?
Yeah, he was hanging me on the hook. I was mad. I started screaming. And our two playmates were like, what the fuck is this guy going? Oh, yeah, he was in that movie. Oh, my God.
Well, so, I mean, I don't think I've found that parodies ruin the source material for me because, well, I mean, one, like, I like to laugh at stuff that I love, like I don't really feel a whole lot of tension in that area. Like, I love The Godfather. That's one of my favorite movies, but I also love Godfather parodies. And I feel like, like your familiarity with the source material makes you more able to enjoy the stuff that pokes fun at it. Like another example, I love Tropic Thunder because I love war movies. So it's like that I feel like the fact that I like the source material actually enhances my ability to enjoy the parody. And the thing with many parodies is that they're making fun of something that is very well established in the culture. So things like The Godfather, Star Wars, Star Trek, stuff that's very often made fun of. But I feel like the fact that it already has a very firm place in the culture makes it immune to being ruined by parody,
Mhm.
because it's already surrounded by a lot of things that that uh, there are franchises that have a life beyond just the film itself. So with Star Trek, there's the reputation of the fandom. And you have like a lot of merchandising around it. A lot of these things are quoted between friends. A lot of the lines from the movies have sort of just entered our lexicon. So there's already so much of the movie that's beyond just the movie or the franchise itself, and parodies just become a part of that, to the point where it just becomes a part of the noise surrounding the movie. And I think that you can just like block all of that out, and enjoy the movie or TV show for what it is.
Yeah. Remember, Leonard Nimoy, you were one that I could call friend. See that, man?
Let the record show that Jack did the Star Trek Vulcan thingy with his hand.
Damn straight.
Yeah.
Oh, fun fact. Has anybody ever tried to do the Vulcan neck pinch on somebody?
The the thing where you put them to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a real thing.
I
I
tried it
mean,
once. It went
is it a
horribly
Vulcan
wrong.
thing or a CIA thing? I'm not sure.
Shocker.
If I say too much about the CIA, I guess I'm going to find out. But
No,
The CIA is too stressed. Then you're fine.
it doesn't work. I tried it once. It went horribly wrong.
I think you just didn't do it right. It's okay. We'll find you a teacher.
There is no way to do it right. I looked it up, but I didn't know that when I was 11, and it went horribly wrong.
Well, you were 11. That was your first mistake.
Watching too much TVs. The reason why I remember that is I didn't even get that from Star Trek. I got that from Spaceballs. Another great parody film that ruined a lot of us.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
no, not again. Hello, my baby. Hello, my dog.
All right. So what we've learned is that you can't watch parody films of things that without it ruining your experience with the original piece of media.
The thing is,
Um.
when you get older too, if you've seen enough of these movies, when you go back and watch them, you can even yourself sort of make a parody out of half of them. I remember
Yeah.
like one time doing my own, like I wrote one when I was in high school. I was bored off my ass. I wish I could find the notebook and I'd take a shot of it and show you guys. I did a parody of The Shining, where like the hotel is haunted, but the dude is actually not seeing ghosts. He's just really high, and he thinks he has a bunch of people around him when he really doesn't.
Hmm.
So like Danny Torrance is the what is it, Mr. I forgot his real name, but I remember just calling him Danny the whole time.
Jack.
Jack Torrance forgets that he doesn't like. Oh wait, there's no alcohol. That's fine. This is the '70s after all. He just reaches into his bag and he pulls out a whole fucking knapsack full of ganja.
Yeah.
That ought to tide me over.
Table's out. Oh, we're out of beer. What do you know? Homer, you're taking this very well. I'll kill all of you.
I'll kill you. I'll kill you all. Homer, I'll go check out that X collection. See you later. That's also the birth of another famous Dead by Daylight quote of us. Right, Bolt? Hold on, kids. I'm coming to rescue the lot of you.
Lately,
Oh,
that's been going sideways.
Oh no! The little fat boy and his family are in trouble. Hold on, kid. I'm coming to rescue the lot. I have to get back into saying that. I can't let that die. Fuck the cameraman that got ran over by Yale Weathers. He got run over by the right friend, because I always found that she was prettier than Jennifer Aniston. Any closing thoughts, anybody? Fuck Jennifer Aniston. That's my closing thoughts for the week. How about you guys?
I wouldn't say a closing
Is that
thought.
meant as another Friends reference?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. That's the connection. I was like, that was completely random, but maybe we can find a way to cover that up. Okay, Friends reference.
Yes, it was. My friend, my favorite lady on that show, ran over the person that I wanted her to run over. Love you, Jen. Love you, Courtney Cox. I don't care that you look like a monster nowadays. You're still cool in my book. How about you guys?
Interesting. I just have a question. Is there such thing as a satire horror film?
A
There,
satire horror
there
film.
are.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure. I'm
There
sure.
are. They're just kind of weird. John Carpenter did one a couple of years ago, almost like 10 years, no more now, shit. About a lady was smoking with a baby in the womb or something like that. That was really uncomfortable. There was another one I saw also. Uh, it was about Osama as a zombie, which is kind of weird and insensitive. It was supposed to be funny, but I'm like, this is just weird and not cool. Then there's also this one was weird. Uh, it was a mock copycat of Paranormal Activity. I think it was called Paranormal Encounters, and they decided to start using real people, and it was just not cool. Like there's like a scene where like the ghost of John Wayne Gacy comes out, and it was just not cool.
Oh yeah,
That's like
yeah. When they start
satirical.
to
Yeah,
really
it's
allude to real
so
stuff, that's when it crosses a line for me.
yeah. That's why when the guy who got run over by the news van was pitching a couple years ago, oh yeah, maybe they should add real people to Dead by Daylight, real killers. I'm like, no, that would not work. You cannot add a real killer into this kind of game.
Technically, they did.
But they're parodied versions. Like for example, I'll give you a
Clown.
parody version. Clown is John Wayne Gacy, right? He throws the gas, which puts people to sleep. That's what Gacy used to do to the killers, to the people he would kill. He would put them to sleep, and then he would do things to them. And there's a few other ones in that game that I could like pull up where like they are parodies of people, but it's like done for a sort of dark, comical, Mortal Kombat fatality-esque effect. But if you go and put like Ted Bundy in the game, Ted Bundy really did that shit. But Ted Bundy was real. It's
Right.
not
Yes.
cool to have Ted Bundy or Dahmer running around in a video game just because some idiot doesn't want to watch horror movies. He just wants to watch Netflix true crime all day. You get it? So it's out there, but it's not really cool. Like I don't. It's not. You can't make a funny out of those kinds of guys. You know what I mean?
Well,
Sure. Yeah.
All right. But it's definitely. Would you, in your opinion, is it worse or on par with those documentaries that
It's
people
on
would argue
par.
glorify?
There's only
Okay.
one time I've seen it done right, but it was unintentional. You ever seen that movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Oh
Been
yeah.
on the back burner for so long.
It's
You know,
really. I'm a big fan of it.
Charlie Manson, man. That's a kid. That's a satire of Charlie Manson.
oh,
Yes. Yeah.
In the Sharon Tate murders, like that's a satire that's there, and it was done in a way where I feel like I'm not a big fan of Tarantino anymore, but that one was handled right. Versus, and even this one to an extent, it's like a caricature, a little bit of a satire on something that really does happen out there, but it's like the way that the characters here deal with it, they didn't use a real person, they just used realistic situations, and the characters are real, except for Channing, or except for Tatum, who decides to try and squeeze herself through a dog door because, you know, logic goes out the window at some point in life. But it's out there, like there's no
Doggy
things.
door.
Sorry.
Logic goes out the doggy door.
that is that.
All right. And on that
You
note,
redeemed
any
yourself.
final sayings on Scream, everybody? Nope. Go for it.
I would put in. I would. Now I have not seen this, but I suspect that it would be an example. The Purge election year as a horror satire
Actually,
Ooh.
seems like it would be.
the film The First Purge was a horror satire. The first.
What was its target?
They make fun of a lot of MAGA people in that one. Like they talk about them.
right.
Like, you know what? The Purge movies are very interesting, but I'll point out the first one, the movie that's called The First Purge, not the first, not Purge One. The first. That's the name of the
Well,
movie. It's a prequel.
that's confusing.
Yeah, it's called a prequel. It's called The First Purge. They should have named it something else, like Purge Zero or whatever the hell, right? Or Founders Day.
Yeah.
But no, they called it The First Purge. I'm like, you're dead.
No,
You fucked
no.
up.
I mean,
You're
I
stuck in
think
an endless Abbott Costello routine for life on that
the
one.
no. I think the working title was The Purge 1.5.
It should have been anything but The First Purge, because then anybody listens to it, they think I'm talking about the one with Ethan Hawke, and I'm not. I'm talking about the prequel one that came out like in circa 2016, and Trumpism was like rising and coming to stay, unfortunately, for the rest of us in those days. We hear about it every day now. So when that happened, a lot of it was aimed that the first purge takes place in a black neighborhood, and they're talking about how, like, okay, but why is it taking place in a black neighborhood? And then you see like white gangs going around shooting up black churches and stuff like that. And like, I think she even, the girl screams out, "Take that, pussy grabbing motherfucker!" Something like that. Like, it's a whole thing that they kind of do, like bits in here, bits in there.
Right.
It's a little weird. It's funny. You kind of feel with it for the moment, but at the same time, it also dates your movie.
Right.
You know, like, you can turn on Scream and watch it anytime, even though it takes place in the 90s. It's not, it's kind of has like a mini timeless. So you can see this happening today, you know?
Yeah. I mean, now I haven't seen any of the Purge films. I should fix that. But the basic premise seems like some sort of satire on mismanagement of resources and policies that are inhumane. No,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's sort of just my guess.
It's more or less along those lines, and it's also like a critique on the divide, right? Like the first one talks about rich
Yes.
people, and then it kind of goes deeper into like how other people, normal people, have to deal with it. And the more, like, the further along it goes, you start to learn about how like other people are affected by that night, because like they're very smart. They would hear the critiques, and then they would implement the critiques into how it doesn't work, right? Like, it just doesn't work. Those things, they're not that easy. Like, Canadians are like, yeah, man, we can't fit all of you Americans, eh? You gotta be careful. You gotta at least come like a month in advance or something, eh? And then there's also like, well, why not just let them raid your shit? There's insurances, but every year the insurance rates go high, so it forces people to protect their property. And it's like things like that they begin to touch on, which fleshes out the universe. But then they went too far. There's now like a TV series, The Forever Purge. Like, yeah, it's just weird now. They lost me after like I think the fourth or fifth movie. I'm like, all right, but it's still a good franchise to follow into. Like, it's a good one, and it's also like good in the sense of satire for laws, class, clash. It's a good one. I think it'll go down in the books as one of those films that tried to warn us, but people were too busy watching Captain America's ass on TV. Way too busy. And that's not me taking a dig at it. It's just it came out while the MCU was in its prime, and nobody gave a shit. Everybody was focused on, that is Captain America's ass. And I want to eat off of Loki's ass too, even though he's a loser and he loses all the time. But I love him because he's a lovable loser. Makes no sense. But we're gonna ignore the other things and sleep in the Loki unicorn's ass bubble. You know, that's where we were in those years.
We're never gonna get the Disney sponsor, are we?
No, we're not. And frankly, I don't want their money. Actually, no, that's not true.
Yeah, I know it's not true.
I need no mouse money.
Yeah, any money's good money. If they buy us out to shut me up, we'll be good. Don't worry about it.
Imagine.
They did
Sign me up.
They did it to John Krasinski. Why don't they do it to us? They shut off John Krasinski's The Good News Report every day. The CNN bought it out and threw that shit in the back burner. That was the end of that. We don't want you reporting the good news. We're only going to report bad things. That's what entertains people and keep them in a controlled fear. Yeah, I went there. Political. On that note, everybody, go watch.
That was a nonpartisan critique, though.
It was. That's
Yeah.
just me aiming shit at media. On that note, everybody, it's about 10:40 here in the East Coast.
Okay, everybody.
You should know where your kids are and go watch the news, which is scarier than anything we just talked about here. I'm Pumpkin Jack, and I was coming out of the Ghastly Hollows. I was accompanied by...
Screaming Red.
Mm-hmm.
And the Laughing Bolt.
The socks off you, for sure the shot stops all you. Knock your locks off and chop your watch off you. Lurking in the back like a crook in the black of the bushes. With the rats with the axe and the stacks of wood is.